what is so important to me is the generational change in the labor dynamic of Europe. You have been front and center in France on the dialogue between a distrustful labor and a distrustful elite in Paris. Let's start with France. Where does that stand right now, that interesting history of socialism, labor, and the elite?
I think France is probably the country which is the more doubtful about its elites, about itself. I think that France suffers from the image that it was at the center of Europe before reunification and that now it's somewhere in the fringe. And this country could have chosen populism. And the strange thing, and the positive thing, is that finally it stuck to its value and chose to elect a young president, Emmanuel Macron, with a very pro-European language. And the French are not unable to be reformed. There are people who are at the same time worried and generous. And I think that now it's high time for this country to reform. France is also in a recovery. And it's clear that we need also to find a compromise between labor and wealth. And that's probably what the difficulty is today, to find a strong social dialogue in order to have economic reforms.
That social dialogue wraps around an interesting European capitalism. Is there a generational shift going now after the election of Macron? And certainly the stunning results in Germany, where the far right re-enters the Bundestag. Is there a generational shift in the European social contract?
First, there could be a contradiction between Macron and AfD because there's two opposite moves. But I would say that populism in Europe, and one must be conscious of that, there are elections in Austria this Sunday and the extreme right will be strong, a strong right will be high. Populism has lost some battles, especially in France. Madame Le Pen was not elected and had a poor result. But populism has not lost the war. There is this feeling that people are dissatisfied with their own elites. It's maybe stronger than the general Schoenel effect, even if sometimes it takes the figure of youngsters. It was the case in France, it could be the case in Austria. So we need to be maybe more careful about that, even if in France it's clear that the whole political system, you're talking about the mainstream parties, my party, Socialist Party, now is threatened to disappear and we'll need to fight to recover. It can, because there is still a will.
Will you provide leadership for that? I'm going to rip up the script here. This is so important as we go domestic French politics. Can you lead the way on the recovery of the socialist movement
I've got
in France?
A bit of things to do here in Washington and especially in Europe. But I will try to provide ideas because I think that my generation is not so ancient that we cannot deliver messages. So I try to read, to think, to express myself. Leadership is another question. But of course, the next elections being European elections, I will have a close look at it. But well, let's go back to the essential. It's clear that those parties, as well my party, Socialist Party, and the Rightist Party, the Republicans, suffered a lot. And so there is a new generation. Is it definitive? Can there be a comeback? It's one of the challenges of the years to come.
Just because of time, I've got to go to Brexit. I think of the ancient geography of Calais and the distrust and tension signified by Calais between France and the United Kingdom, and now we see Brexit as well. What do you need from Mr. Hammond? What do you need from Prime Minister May right now to jumpstart the Brexit debate to a constructive 2008?
Our position is very clear and is very firm. It's a divorce. It's a divorce that needs to be a good divorce with a strong relationship after the divorce. But to discuss about the future relationship between EU and UK will be a European country, even if not inside the EU, we need first to solve the issues that are on the table. And the first thing is that we need to have a strong, precise and definite discussion about the financial settlements and also about citizens' rights. So first things first. In the future, of course, we will be close together.
This is critical. As you use the divorce model, do you need a more structured dialogue a la a court process in divorce or something squishy like American arbitration in divorce? What do you need from the British? Do you need more precision, a more acute dialogue from them?
A few weeks ago, Madame May delivered a speech in Florence, which was, and everybody appreciated it, a progress, because she took into consideration the idea of transition, etc., etc. And the reaction by all EU stakeholders was, yes, it's getting better. But everybody said at this time, we need to move from this speech, which is good, to precise proposals. And we are still waiting for them. And this is why yesterday we had to say that there was not sufficient progress to move forward. But let's not be too pessimistic. In the 2 months to come, and that's what our negotiator Michel Barnier said, progress is possible, and progress has to happen.
And it can be decided outside the courtroom as well. Who's going to drive this dialogue for Europe? You represent Mr. Juncker and the voice of the European Commission, the European Union, or will it be driven by the state leaders, Chancellor Merkel, Mr. Macron, and the others?
We've got a very precise organization, and our British friends are aware of that. We have a unique negotiator, Michel Barnier. He's the Director General in the Commission. He acts in the name of the Commission, all the Commission. You spoke about Phil Hammond. I discussed with him. He's a friend, but I'm not negotiating with Phil Hammond, and no commissioner is negotiating with his counterpart. But Michel Barnier does not only represent the Commission, he has a clear mandate by the European Council, and he reports to the European Council each time it meets. So the British side must know, and it knows, that the 27 have a very clear position and that they are totally united, and they will stay so.
Good news for you. We see Bank of America decide they're going to move bodies from London to Paris. Everybody knows everybody wants to live in Paris. We've known that for years. Are we going to see more people in London, in the city, make the choice of Moscovici's Paris?
Today I'm in Brussels, not in Paris, but Paris is of course a fantastic city. What is clear is that through these shifts, and it's not the only one, there is Paris, there is Frankfurt, there is Amsterdam, there is Berlin, there are other centers, also Spain. You can see how necessary it is for these banks to have a very strong foot inside the Eurozone. And this is why I'm a very strong advocate of the Eurozone. I think that after the Brexit, Euro will be 85% of the GDP of the Europe as a whole, and we need to deepen our Eurozone.
Are my Hermes bow ties going to be more expensive because of Brexit? Do we know that yet?
No worry.
No worry. There we go. Pierre Moscovici, thank you so much.